I wanted to start with this small message, which is the fact that it's not about what you learn, is what about you become. I think that's the idea of putting yourself into a new situation, because that's the opportunity to learn something new. But I don't think new is better. And that's my next quote, is those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So I think also it is very important to be someone that is interested in the past, maybe interested in history, because it's about experiences, gaining experiences, learning from other people's experiences. And I think that's why memory is good in a way. And so that's also something I want to say that is important, because when you do marketing, you don't want to be constantly reinventing the wheel. And when you're an entrepreneur, is you have to realize that you're doing something for people, the present people, people of the future, but you also want to be able to understand what has been done in the past. So if you work in fashion, if you work in music, you don't want to be unknowledgeable about the past, because you can listen to the past, learn from the music, and get inspired by those work and those creations that were done in the past. So creating the future is knowing the past. That's what I think it's kind of. But you don't want to be creating the future just thinking about the past, because there's an element of innovation. There's an element of disruption, an element of coming with something new that will be better. But new and better doesn't mean anything. It's new and better for who? Always thinking about who are the customers and doing it for a certain group of customers. So you could be better, but the customers may not want your product because they are not the customers that are meant to get this product. So my contacts have not changed, frank.vigneron@csun.edu. So I just wanted to remind you that's the best way to communicate with me. The way you will be graded is also very similar to the previous class, in the sense that you will have to produce a report with a group and present those presentations. And in this situation, you don't have one big presentation at the end. So in the previous class, I was sort of giving you cases and simulation and things that you had to presenting subjects and all of those doing things. So I feel that you've done extremely very, very well. And in fact, I have to say, you definitely a course that I won't forget, in the sense that you surprised me with the presentation at the end. You all got very good grades. I've never given, I think, so many 4 times A's. Full group getting an A, that was the first time I ever done that, maybe of the 12 cohort. But I would have not guessed that the day before. Why is this? Because everyone was sort of quiet. And I felt maybe that was the phone format. I was thinking, oh, maybe I should change, because there's so much quietness and so much surprises. That's not really good. But I was positive surprised because everyone really stepped up. And that was awesome. In this class, there will be less of that risks, because in fact, you'll have 3 assignments. And those 3 assignments are graded much less when it comes to assignment 1. That's only 10%. And then assignment 2 is only 10%. And then the 3rd assignment is the one with most of the percentage. And we look at this again in just a minute. But I wanted to say that instead of presenting and working on not getting graded and just getting feedback, won't happen this time. So I'll try to be respectful and make sure everyone is sort of respectful of one another. Some people have changed groups. I would say there's 2 groups that pretty much stayed the same, and there's 2 groups that sort of became different. So I'm hoping that those differences of those 2 groups will not generate any issues, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hoping you will all be able to finish this class. Usually people get kind of more irritated and more anxious in this final class, because it's the final of all, and it's been a long time. So hopefully you will have the stamina and this sort of, what I noticed from this cohort as well, as sort of very respectful way of addressing each other and so forth. So hopefully this keeps on going, and that stays the mark of this group. So just a little bit about me, but I won't say much, because you may remember, but I have like 3 positions. Is one, I'm an instructor at the university for marketing, consumer behavior, market research, and consulting and branding and strategy on all these things, entrepreneurship as well. And I'm also a researcher, but I'm much more specialized in everything that has to do with branding and luxury. And an instructor, I've started being an instructor in 1995. So this year would be my 30th year being an instructor in the university. As a researcher, I started in 1993, and as a practitioner, I started in 1991. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been always passionate about it. Business is my passion. And I'm excited to be able to teach you now entrepreneurship, which is sort of this natural extension. But you're going to still have to learn a lot of different things, new terms that have to do a lot, again, about marketing, because marketing it's probably the biggest percentage of the function within entrepreneurship. But it's much more limited than marketing. Sorry, marketing is much more limited than entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship, you have to wear all the different hats. You're going to have to develop yourself as someone that is budgeting, financing. You're going to have to think about the operations and the production and all these different things, at least conceptually, versus this was sort of not so much played in the previous class. Now, what is consulting? What is business? What is accounting, marketing, production, finance, law, innovation, management? All of these functions, if you put them all together and you do them all together at the same time, you're essentially doing entrepreneurship pretty much. So that's why entrepreneurship is difficult, is because you have to be the best mom and the best dad at the same time. And that's very difficult for one person to be, right? And so, and you have to be an engineer sometimes in addition to this. And you have to be a leader, obviously. And you have to be someone that keeps people motivated and all these different things. So that's important. So going to the canvas is very important in order to be able to see where we are and the things we're going to be working on. So now, quickly talking about the percentage, there will be 2 quizzes. They will be 15% each. There will be forum discussions, which will be run not by me, by Professor Mackenzie, which would be 5%. And then there are the 3 group assignments that I was just talking about. The 2 small ones, so it's 2 presentations. The first presentation is called One Sheet, the second is called Go to Market, and the third is called the Startup presentation, the in-class presentation is the big one. So it's 10, 10, and 40%. So here again, the last presentation is the one that has the most point. So you could be sort of not doing so well in the preliminary one, but doing so well at the last one that you still end up getting an A. So that's the format that I like the classes, is because I know sometimes people have an accident at the beginning. And then in this class, not so much, because they got sort of trained in the first class. So there's never been an accident, but there's a step up. So the one sheet is like 3 times easier than the last one. And that's why it's much a smaller percentage. Now, what's important is in the one sheet, you will sort of introduce us to your startup. But I want to say this 2 times. I'm going to say it 1 time. But it could be that your go-to-market plan is about something totally different because you change your mind and you don't want to go the direction of what was the one sheet. Again, I'm going to say it is possible that your go-to-market and your in-class presentation be something, another idea, another business, another concept that you actually changed between the one sheet and the go-to-market. Out of 4 groups, I expect maybe 1 group to do this. So I expect 3 groups to have an idea for the first presentation that will be carried through. So 3 out of 4. But I expect 1 group that totally changed their mind because they go, you know what, it's true, that makes no sense, or it doesn't make as much sense as we thought. We totally decided not to sell musical ice cream, but we're going to sell musical instruments or something like this. It totally changed their mind. So it's possible to do that, and that's okay. So if you remember this, we don't expect you to be sort of married to your first idea and not have to go through the whole process. Change your mind. And I remember one group that didn't do that. I remember there was a group that came up with this idea of creating an Uber, like a taxi service for musicians. So this taxi service will be organized in such a way that the vehicles will be geared in order to receive the equipment from musicians, like a drum set and all this, or a large cello or something like that. And pretty soon they realized that there was such a small market for this that they should not go this direction. But they were obstinated and they kept doing it. And they struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle. So as soon as you see something is bad, bail out, turn, and pivot and change. And that's also part of being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is not someone that has one idea and nothing else. An entrepreneur is someone that has maybe a few ideas and go slowly test their ideas and doesn't commit if they see that there's red flags. So that's sort of what we want you to do. Is if your one sheet is so weak, so complicated, you may want to change. Brian McKenzie will be in charge of the first, second presentation, and I will join for the third. So I'll be an evaluator for the third presentation, but he's going to be steering the one sheet and the go-to-market. So the quizzes, when they are, I have the date, but again, you know, if you look at the syllabus, it's very clear. The syllabus is set up the same way you've seen it before. And here again, I just want to talk about the 3 dates for the 3 group presentation. So in that situation, you will all be presenting, which means that when presenting the one sheet, there will be full presentation of the one sheet. And then on the date of the go-to-market, there will be full presentation of the go-to-market. And then the final day, there will be full presentation. I just want to stop it there to flip the screen to the syllabus for simply just showing you that if you're looking at the syllabus, it will very much look like the syllabus from the previous class in terms of format and colors and all of this. Again, you have every week, and then you have the Saturday. So this Saturday, I already sent you an announcement saying that this is not a lecture where we'll be meeting on Saturday. This is a Saturday that is just marked there because we want you to start thinking about working with your group in order to prepare your first group assignment, which is the one sheet. So we did exactly the same thing in the previous class, where the first Saturday was no, the first Saturday of the first class was a meeting with the client. So it was the second Saturday. And so this Saturday was left, was marked, but not with no lecture, because we want you to get to work with your groups. And we know that you're busy during the week and it may be difficult. So we want to make sure that you have this scheduled times where most of you will be meeting probably, but some of you may not be able to meet. But at least you need to find an arrangement between each other and just make sure everyone gets involved. And then the 1st of April, which is a funny date, we will have the class next week, which will be my last lecture with you. And then we will be switching to Professor Mackenzie. And one thing is very important to notice is be careful. He's going to be starting at 6:30 and he won't be starting at 7. So he's starting at 6:30 and not 7. So and it ends 30 minutes earlier as well. So there's a slight little difference, and it's going to be 6:30 till the end, even on the last class when I come back. And the reason for this is simply that the university screwed up because they double booked me on Tuesday, and so therefore I couldn't be starting at 6:30. But this class traditionally starts at 6:30, so it's just the first time that there was administrative mistakes. That's why we're starting. But normally it's 6:30. So just remember, next week is 7, and after this it's going to switch 6:30 every single time. The Saturday, Professor Mackenzie has set up different times, and he likes to do workshops on Saturdays. So you can meet with him, and he's going to sort of prepare you for the various presentation, the first one, the second one, and then the third one. And he's a very delightful person that is very energetic, extremely passionate about Maya, and someone that's a lot of experience in the music industry, and someone that's sort of been, I guess, inspired and trained a lot. So we do think alike. It's very funny. But I guess it's because I was sort of his mentor and so forth. So that has been a wonderful relationship. Someone very valuable that gets along very well with every course since the beginning. And he has been instructing, I would say, for the past 5 years or something like that with this class and myself. Okay. Do you have any questions? Any question? Yes.
I saw the forum was on the syllabus. Are we doing that again? Forum discussion.
Yes, so he's managing the forum discussion, and I'm not totally sure how he does that. So I'm sorry, I can't totally answer the forum. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Will they be due before he steps in?
I'm not totally sure.
They start week 3. Oh, thanks, Alyssa.
Yeah, so I'm not totally sure when he starts them and how does he grade them. But here's one thing I want you to know. And in a way, I think he's absolutely right. He is very big on I don't know if you realize, but I had 3% for attendance in the last class. And you never noticed that I took attendance because I was paying attention. But I was very satisfied with the attendance, and I saw a lot of involvement in the class for attendance. And therefore, nobody mentioned about it, but everybody got 3%. I was just give 3% across everyone because I thought it was great. So everybody got 100%. That's
Nice.
not the case of Professor Mackenzie. He's very careful, and he wanted this class to have 5% for attendance, and this 5% are for attendance with the video. So he takes a random attendance, and he only takes the attendance of the people that are on the video. He's a cool guy. He's a nice guy, but he's probably right more than I am. So he's going to take video attendance. And so if you have your video and you're there, boom, you get the thing. But if you have no video, I don't think it counts much. So I'm just warning you. That's how he does it. And he's just going to let you know, so it's fair and obvious and transparent. But he's very big on being able to see everyone. In fact,
Yeah, so we're not, this is gonna be silly. Sorry to bring it back to this
no,
again.
no.
So this class, Mackenzie's not here yet. So I just look terrible today. If you think that photo was bad, I look terrible now. But next class, I'll be sure to make sure my camera's on. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any points here. I want to do my best, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And for example, you're someone that usually put your camera, I would say
Yeah.
80% of the time. So don't do it less
I
because it's
won't do it less. It'll be
yeah.
on more. It's just right now I'm a little ill. I look
Okay.
terrible. It's
Okay.
not pleasant for anyone to
No
see. It
problem.
distract the class. So my apologies.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, of course. But it's he's going to do them randomly 5 times. If there's a reason why you don't want to be appearing or know what, you can obviously reach out to him and say, I'm very sorry tonight. So it's just a question of respect. He's big on that, and I'm just warning you. I don't have to warn you. He's going to let you know quick. But I want you to succeed in this relationship with this professor, and I'm just letting you know he's big on that. I am as well, but I'm not as coercive, I think, as he is. So that's it. But I totally agree. So now, going back, do you have any other questions before I move on, or I don't want to be jumping further, not acknowledging your question in case you have. So if you don't have any, I'll just keep on going. So this class, we're going to try to explain what's an entrepreneur. So it's going to be sort of a broad definition of entrepreneurs, a broad understanding of entrepreneurs, lots of perspective on what entrepreneurs are discussed and defined of. I think it's important to hear it at least once. If you were to buy a book, you will find one definition, another book, another definition. Pretty much every book has a different definition. So instead of asking you to read 20 books and find 20 different definitions, I'm going to try to bring all kinds of definitions, but you will see some overlaps, some repeats between this definition. Oftentimes when you hear the definition of who is an entrepreneur and what you need to be in order to be an entrepreneur, it's kind of overwhelming and not very motivating because it looks like these people are superwoman or superman, geniuses. It's almost impossible to have all of the skills and to be as great as everyone says that you need to be great for entrepreneurs. So it's can't be possible that every person who is an entrepreneur is a superman or woman, but it's important to see that there's facets that would be great to have. Discuss the 3 main reasons why people decide to be an entrepreneur, and there's good and not so good reason. Identify the characteristics of the one that are successful as entrepreneurs, and we discuss the music entrepreneurs. Explain some myths about entrepreneurs and then their entrepreneurial process, and then bring back to entrepreneurial marketing, which is like a subfield of entrepreneurship and a subfield of marketing. So what's important is to see that there's huge engagement in America for being an entrepreneur. In fact, being an entrepreneur is something that's seen as positive in the US. If you're an entrepreneur, that's cool. There's people that even create business cards just to be able to say that they're an entrepreneur. And I actually met a lot of people that say that they're entrepreneurs, but really, it's not really serious entrepreneurship. It's more like a hobby. And they believe this hobby is making them look like entrepreneur. It just sounds cool to say that you're an entrepreneur. There's in fact a lot of books, 600 books about entrepreneurship. There's 62,000 plus books on small business. There's a huge creations of businesses, small businesses. It's almost like a dream of so many people, but they sometimes procrastinate. And eventually, the issue is we need so many entrepreneurs because there's so many that fail. So that's also the ratio. Lots of people fail, and therefore we need lots of people to want to become entrepreneurs. If everyone knew what it took to be an entrepreneur, probably they would not try to do it. It's like if people knew really how much work it is to be married, people would not get married, and that's why you want people to get excited and get married, because then that's sort of maybe something that is helping sustain a society of some sort. But getting committed is difficult. Getting entrepreneur is commitment, and therefore it is difficult. All long-term commitments are difficult, and it's work every day. A lot of people want to be entrepreneur, but they want to be entrepreneur Monday to Friday. There's no such a thing as entrepreneur Monday to Friday. That's an employee, not an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, it can be anytime. I'm working between someone in Germany and someone in China on Thursday. And because of the different time schedule, me being in Los Angeles, we have to meet, I have to meet them at 7 on Zoom, because they're going to be at 10 p.m. in China, and they're going to be at 3 p.m. in Germany. So the times you just show up for work anytime there is work. So there's different perspective on what's an entrepreneur. So the academic definition is entrepreneurship is the process by which individuals pursue opportunities without regard to their resources that they currently control. So a lot of people say, oh, I'll become an entrepreneur when I'll have more time, when I'll have more money, when I'll have more experience, when I'll have more inventory and all this. And so postponing to be an entrepreneur is a big problem, because eventually these people most of the time don't do anything. Then the venture capitalist is entrepreneurship is the art of turning an idea into a business. And so this is a definition that is a little dangerous. And why is this definition dangerous? Entrepreneurship is the art of turning an idea into a business. Can anyone comment why could this be not so good to present it that way? Entrepreneurship.
Because entrepreneurs are broke. Wait, can you explain the question again?
Yeah, the question is, entrepreneurship is the art of turning an idea into a business. That's their definition. It's a good definition, but what would be the drawback of this definition, or the weakness of that definition?
You need to have an idea. This is me guessing. I don't know. Don't judge me.
Well, yeah. So you need to have an idea. The problem is that everybody has ideas. I have ideas. My neighbor has ideas. And when you are in business, the last thing you want is fall in love with ideas. It's like, I'm going to marry Jennifer. Why? She has pretty eyes. She has so beautiful eyes. I'm going to commit to stay with her for the next 50 years because of her pretty eyes. That's it. That's my idea. So
Terrible
commitment is a terrible idea. So the problem is it's an idea.
I see.
I agree. Therefore, businesses should not be good or bad because you like or you don't like the idea. Ideas are subjective. And therefore, do not invest in subjective things. Invest in objective things that you find in a $10,000 report that you downloaded from the CSUN library, from a Statista recent report. That's more tangible, more. It's not 100% objective, but it's more objective than an idea. Because the problem with an idea is you could wake up every morning with a new idea. And yet, to get a business successful, how long does it take? Years. So if you wake up every morning and have an idea, you're never going to be successful, because you're going to keep reinventing yourself every day and never finish what you started. So ideas are the best friends and the worst friends of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs without ideas can't be entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs with ideas that are changing every day cannot be successful entrepreneurs. So you have to have an idea and you have to stick to it, but the idea has to be realistic and it has to exist. It can't exist just in your head, in your brain. So ideas can be very dangerous. Okay, it's like I have a member of my family today that went to spend one day in a town, and suddenly she's saying, I want to move in that town after one day that she went there. I said,
Terrible idea.
yeah, it's just because you saw something that you like and suddenly you're kind of depressed or whatever, and you want to move there because you felt good that day. So you don't like where you are right now because you've been there 10 years, 5 years, and there's routine and there's positive and negative things. So you want to move somewhere new that it's on a new page. And after one day, you've decided that's the best place on the earth. These are emotional decisions. Business cannot be sustainable based on emotional decisions. An investor should not invest in someone else emotional decisions. It's like, oh, I like the story of that idea of this emotional person. Maybe you make a donation for something emotional, but you don't make an investment for something emotional. So I repeat that. You make a donation for something emotional, but you don't make an investment for something emotional. Okay, so that's almost like there's a few things I want to make sure that you know. Opportunity, and an opportunity is exactly the opposite of an idea. An idea is conceptual. An opportunity is a fact. So fall in love with opportunities, but don't fall in love with ideas. So this is kind of the main thing that I want you to remember. Normally, it should be pretty easy because that's sort of what you, in my mind, have graduated in the previous class, is supplying opportunities to business people. Then the next one is entrepreneurs assemble and then integrate all the resources needed, the money, the people, the business model, the strategy to transform an idea supported by opportunity into a viable business. So suddenly this one is a little better because it just says that you can have an idea. I'm not saying having an idea is bad. I'm saying having an idea that is unsupported by facts and objective things such as opportunities is extremely dangerous. Kind of like what I was saying, getting married with someone, is it all you have, all the reasons you have are emotional reasons? Maybe as I don't sound very romantic, but eventually those emotional reasons will be changing with time. And then this person may look like the worst person to you because your emotion have changed. But if you have real facts that are objective, you tend to have a more steady relationship.
So you're saying I should marry someone rich, for sure?
No, you shouldn't be marrying someone whose your decision is based on objective, tangible facts. For example, I don't know, I like to go to bed early. She likes to go to bed early. So that may sound very boring, but most people will go, oh, this person is really cool. We went to bed so late, it was really fun. It's going to be fun for a month, a year. But if you're someone that goes to bed very early and they go to bed very late, down the road, you won't see each other very much because you're going to be crossing paths.
I'm in bed by 10.
So that's one thing. Or this person says, oh, I love places where it's cold. It's so fun. I could ski all year long. I don't want to be skiing just 2 months a year, 1 month a year. And you say, oh, that's kind of fun. But I love some places very hot. I can't stand a sweater. I have to be flip-flops on all day. So that may be fun at the very beginning, but eventually it gets old.
Well, now
so,
I have a question about passion.
Yes.
If you have a passion for something, is that a bad idea of something to get into business to?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So thank you for asking me this question because by explaining all of this, I'm trying to be concrete and use analogies, but I don't know if everyone gets it. But based on the question you're asking, you went to the next level, which is, therefore, I have a passion. Should I use my passion? And there is a risk because it depends. It depends if it's a passion that is very introverted or if it's a passion that you like to share with other people. So if it's a very introverted passion, it's like an egocentric passion, or it's like a very inner directed passion, you may like to really do it just for yourself, but you couldn't do it for a job. So for example, I use mine. I have several passions and I'm a very happy person. So then it's very easy for me to be with other people because I'm happy and I do things. I move on. But there's one thing I love is to work on old cars and fix them. Take the engine, put it back, do this, do that. I'm not very good at it. I'm not very knowledgeable at it, but I just like to understand and take things into pieces and put them back. And I'm not very fast, but I'm not super slow. I'm not really bad, but I'm just the way I am. And I do it because it's my passion. Now, if tomorrow morning I had to wake up and go to work to fix other people's cars, I would absolutely hate it. Because this is something I like to do at my speed without the pressure of making money from it. It's a passion, a very strong passion. And I've done it. I started, I was 12 or something like this, 12 or 13. And so I could make money probably, but I'd probably little by little start not liking it because it's a very inner thing. Versus I'm very passionate, for example, with teaching as well. And so I teach business, but I also teach martial arts. That's another thing that I do several times a week. And to me, it's not about martial arts or it's not about business, but to me, it's about the exchange of a knowledge from one person to a group of people. And I love to see
Professor, what martial arts do you teach?
I teach Taekwondo.
Oh. At what level?
Well, I have a 4th degree.
Nice. And so who do you teach?
Sorry?
Who do you teach? Do you teach adults or children?
Well, mostly children.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, I started martial arts in 1979.
Yo.
Can you break my neck with one foot?
But
that's really cool.
I can break your back.
Hey,
Daddy.
oh my God.
So what I'm trying to say is that's a passion. Hopefully I answered the right question, which was very good because when you're in the music industry, it's the same kind of things. You have to be very careful. And so I know that if I was, I guess I could be teaching, working on old cars and all this as well. Because to me, the passion of teaching, but the doing the old cars and all that, no, I don't want to be doing it for money.
The reason I ask is because most people are passionate about music, which is what leads them to the industry overall. But there's a lot of times where they confuse passion with a lack of understanding, for example, the opportunity and what truly entails entrepreneurship and running a business.
Absolutely.
So,
and so I can relate to all the clients that we serve at Maya, right? You served one, but I served the 11 before. And every time it was like this. It's like what you do on Monday, what you do on Tuesday, what you do on Wednesday, right? And so the issue with the music industry is they have to take it like a job, like a pure job, like they're starting a pizza delivery company. Yeah. And you have to take it like this. And that's when you start taking it like this, where suddenly the passion may be really eliminated. So I mentioned it. I have a daughter who is a champion of horse riding. She jumps. She does English riding and all that. And when she was 11 years old, she says, "Oh, I'm going to be a champion. I'm going to be a teacher and all of this." And then I was telling her, "Be careful because it's very different. This is about you when you're winning and you're a champion. It's great. After that, it's going to be about the people you're serving. So you're going to be into the hospitality, service industry, making sure everybody's satisfied, making sure that they like what you do, and you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for them." And so she's kind of very aggressive, personality. And she was like, "What about them? No. I'm going to keep riding horses and playing with ponies and having fun." That's my job and make me get money. You won't be paid for this. You're going to be paid for making the other people happy, satisfying their needs. And then she decided that she needed to be finding a job that will make money in order to keep her hobby, because that's an expensive hobby, very expensive hobby, to be riding horses for so many reasons. And she says, no, this will never be my job. This will be my hobby, my passion. And then I will find another passion that I can make into a money thing. There's also, just to continue with this, there's a lot of people also that work and are very unhappy of the work that they do. And so they work from Monday to Friday to Saturday, doing things that they hate, and they don't realize that Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday, that's a big chunk of their life, and Saturday and Sunday, it's just a small chunk. So then I'm going to contradict myself by saying, you need to do a job that you're passionate about. Because that's the only way you're going to survive doing that job, feel good doing that job, become better at doing that job, because you have a level of passion. But you have to see the passion and the commercial value of what you're doing and understand this idea of commerce, of selling something. So, yeah, it is complicated. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's an important element that you're probably thinking yourself is, where do I go?
Thank you.
And so now the idea is that's an idea I find so exciting as well, is entrepreneurship is oftentimes associated with startup, creating new businesses. And obviously that's the exercise that you're going to do in this class. But I want you, at least 5 people in this cohort to remember that entrepreneurship is not just starting businesses. Entrepreneurship is also done for existing businesses. Entrepreneurship is cool, fun, exciting. But what's more exciting than that is entrepreneurial. So it's being someone that is constantly an entrepreneur and thinking different, thinking outside of the box, thinking about improvement, updating, innovating. And so if you're someone who's a natural entrepreneur, you could be working for a 200-year-old company by reinventing this business, reformatting the business, recycling the business. So entrepreneurship do not have to be people hired to start businesses. They can also be people that are injected inside a business, kind of like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur that was put in Apple, and it turned Apple into a business ultra successful because he was not thinking like a corporate person. He was thinking like an entrepreneur. So it is very important not only to look at entrepreneurship because you want to start businesses and you have dreams and you have ideas, but you also want to be someone who's entrepreneurial and is therefore able to get into a business and look at it from a new eye and saying, what can we do for this business that is so much better, so much more in sync, becoming even more in sync, becoming a movement inside the movement, a revival of this existing business. And that's super important and more exciting. And why is it more exciting? Because if you're only thinking about entrepreneurship as startup, it's what, 50% at best of what you could do. Versus if you think about being entrepreneurial is therefore every business needs you. I'm an entrepreneur and I can help your business. But why would I need an entrepreneur? My business is 200 years old. No. You need an entrepreneur because I will become entrepreneurial in your existing 200 years old business. Okay. So entrepreneurial firms need to be proactive, innovative, risk-taking. So the idea is that you don't wait for consumers to come up with a need, is you hear their need before even they sort of voice their need, and that's being proactive. Innovative means that you are coming up with new solution to existing problems. So you're not in love with the solution, but you're in love with the problems. And constantly looking for problems, and you're constantly being the first to see the problem, be the first one to come up with the solution. So be in love with the problems, don't be in love with the solution. And that's another important thing in entrepreneurship. If you're in love with the idea, you're going to stick to the idea, commit to the idea, where you should be constantly looking for the optimization of what you're trying to do of your business, not the optimization of your idea, the optimization of your business, the optimization of your brand. You will have competitors. Those competitors will take market share. You will be squashed by competitors. So don't let the competitors squash you. Be proactive. Go to the customers. The customers and your understanding of the customer is your strength. Risk-taking is also the fact that you cannot always find all the answers, 100% of the answers in Statista. Sometimes there is a leap of faith. The issue is here is how much silence, how much chaos, how much darkness can you deal with, and how much should you deal with? How much risk should you take? It's like we have 50% of the ID backed up, and we have another 50% of the ID that is not backed up, and we just don't know. Maybe that's too much. So the idea, the concept here will be to try to minimize the uncertainty, but you can't demonstrate pure certainty in business. You just minimize. You maximize the certainty or you minimize the uncertainty, okay? So businesses that are conservative and not too entrepreneurial, they just react, they just wait, they just let someone else come up with innovations and they don't take any risks. But by being conservative, you don't get to be the leader, you don't get to be the one that makes the most profit, you don't get the one that has the fastest growing market share, you don't get the one that has the most famous brand, you don't get the one that gets to select the customers, the distributors, and you don't get the one that has the best brand equity. So that's a big issue. Now, why would you want to become an entrepreneur? So there's three main reasons. Because in a way, you can't stand having a boss, and maybe you want to become your own boss. That connects directly to the fact that you think your ideas are better, and you don't really support, and you don't tolerate even other people telling you what to do. So maybe you have to be your own boss, you bossy, and you're someone that's constantly are looking for improving and making things better. So desire to pursue your own ideas is, my ideas are better. But so that's what really good, and that's what Rod was speaking in some indirect way just before, which is that you have this passion. You have this passion that drives your ambition, and you have this knowledge that helps you execute your ambition and make the processes and organize and operate all of that. And great. But the issue here again is make sure you don't fall in love with your ideas, because you're not serving your own satisfaction, you're serving the satisfaction of someone else. So you can sort of become a guru sometimes. But even if you become a guru and you become very successful, you are in a point of danger because the consumer may change. And if they change and you were successful because your ideas was what they wanted and it was just a good timing, this may not happen the second time and a third time. So you have to make sure now that you've succeeded on your ideas, not taking into account the consumer desire and needs. Now you need to take these in a more controlled way and try to understand what they want in order to anticipate what they want and not keep surfing on this concept of I'm so good, I have the best ideas and everybody else will follow me because I'm such a great person. Some other people also are trying to be an entrepreneur because they see that there's bigger reward. You come up with a disruption, you create a growth, more growth, and you will harvest the result of all of these changes that you're making. And so you want big risks, you take big risks because you're someone that is looking for a bigger reward. And as an employee, you have less a percentage of reward from success that you would get percentage of reward being the owner and the founder, the entrepreneur that created the business at the beginning. The reason is that if you're an employee, you can't sell the business, and sometimes you can be an employee with some shares. But if you are the entrepreneur, you have the biggest shares. Sometimes there is entrepreneurship where entrepreneurs actually don't get much money from being paid for the business that they've created, but they get the big return from all of their hard work the day they sell the business. And as an employee, you may be making a good amount of money every month, every year, but once this business is sold, the money made by this entrepreneur is like 1,000 times more than what the employee made during the period. So there is risks and there is benefits. And so these may be the reasons. Any comments, anything that you may want to add on this? No. Okay, so I'm going, do you have, this is something that is I think very important, and I don't always succeed to transmit all important disease. But I think it's something very positive that I want to bring up is a concept of attribution theory. So the concept of attribution theory is oftentimes discussed by successful people. And so there's one video that I recommend from Kobe Bryant. It's one of the latest video that he did before he got into an accident. And it's called Winners Don't Make Excuses. And he explained about the fact that when he was a young person trying to be drafted, he quickly realized that he was very good, but he was not good enough to be in the NBA. And in fact, he found that there was a lot of people that were better than him. They were taller, they jumped higher, they had more stamina, they had more muscles, they had bigger hands, longer legs, bigger jump, and all of this. So it said, how am I going to succeed in this world where I see so many people that are superior to me? So people that make excuses, suddenly they say, I'm not the tallest, so I give up. I have the shortest arm, so I give up. I have the shortest fingers, so they give up. So he says, if I want to win, I can't make excuses. So he says, I'm just going to work harder than anyone else. And so from hearing from this video, he was extremely hardworking. He would spend always more time than anyone else training. Or if the coach would say, make 2 laps from here to there, he would try to do 2 laps on something. 2 laps on 2, 2 laps on 1, 2 laps on, always do a little bit more than everyone else. And he would do, which something that he doesn't talk about, but again, all these people don't talk about, is he would do essentially this attribution theory. So what is the attribution theory? So you write down and Google it, or ChatGPT it, or whatever, and you'll find that it's a psychological theory that talks about the disposition a person is relating a particular outcome to someone's behavior. So Bob is successful. He's happy because he's winning because of what? Because of himself or because of some kind of contextual situation? How do you attribute losing on winning? And so there's people that oftentimes attribute things to themselves. So they have an inner attribution. It's always, if they win, it's because of the hard work. It's because they've trained longer or because they made the right strategic decisions. But if they lose, they also make those inner direction. It's because I didn't train enough, because I didn't go to the coach and ask the right questions, because I didn't do the right exercises, or because I focused on what I wanted versus what I should have done, and so forth. So inner attribution is therefore a healthier perspective to win than when you do an outer attribution. Outer attribution are the people that would say, I failed the exam because of the professor, I failed the presentation because of the professor, I failed the competition because of my equipment. So they will try to blame everything else but themselves. Their success, they unfortunately also rarely blame the outside, but they blame, or they related to what they did. So they're very inner directed when it comes to winning, but when it comes to losing, they're outer directed. So the problem with this is, if you, for example, take a bunch of athletes, so that's true for Kobe Bryant, but in fact, there's many research that shows that winning athletes have a very inner directed personality. They blame themselves and mostly themselves. The problem of being someone that blame yourself is eventually you create a lot of stress to yourself. So they tend to be the people that have the biggest mental issue as well. And in fact, a lot of people that go into a situation of suicide are very inner directed type of people, as they're very stressed, they auto-stress themselves because they blame themselves. So unfortunately, being a winner, you become very hard on yourself. But this being hard on yourself is the best way that you can improve yourself, because you don't relate to the outside, which you have no control. The only people really that you have the biggest control is not your parents, not your kids, not your brothers and sisters, your neighbors, is yourself. So if every time you want to make an improvement, you do an analysis of what you did and what you could do in order to improve yourself, you see that you get closer and closer to success and you become more and more of a winner. And then you have a better acknowledgement of why you won and why you lost, because you're looking at your own evaluation and not trying to find a scapegoat or whatever. And that's the message from Kobe Bryant. And this is just a message for you. It's a great video, I recommend. But in fact, he's just talking about attribution theory. But again, he never mentioned the word attribution theory. That's the psychology, the professional name for what he's trying to explain. And I'm curious, I wish I had met him and asked him if he understand or if he knew attribution theory. And maybe he would have said, I've never heard of it, which is funny because that's something he talked about all the time. He just didn't know the psychological medical term for it. And so I learned of that term because the first time I learned about that term is when I met Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman was the president of the American Psychological Association, so someone extremely famous. If you put Martin Seligman on Amazon, you're going to see many of his books. Very famous guy for studying people's psychology. He was the president of the US Psychological Association. And when I met with him, we were discussing, I was telling him about my research, and he was telling me about the fact that he was actually studying sports people to see how many people in the sport had attribution, inner and outer, and he was part of the group that was showing this importance of attribution. But that's how I learned about it. And I thought that was very, very exciting. And I've used it since. This was in the 90s, and it's very important. So now you are like me, you're trying to do the best you can in this world. Just think about attribution theory. Now, you may want to become an entrepreneur. And again, as an entrepreneur, you should be thinking of attribution theory. And that's my own little narrative on that is that to succeed as an entrepreneur, you need to have good attribution. Because with good attribution, you can optimize your efforts and not trying to blame always others for your failures. So what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur? Do you have anything you want to comment on attribution yourself?
I'm glad you're bringing the positive psych into class. I did a couple semesters on. I never read Martin Seligman.
Oh,
exactly, but I read some peripheral.
okay.
A lot of peripheral stuff. So yeah, good on you.
Well, yeah, Martin Seligman, unfortunately, is very famous because of his study on why do people suicide. And so, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who have faced those situations and they wouldn't know this name. This is probably the most famous in the world for that.
For adversity, my people.
Yeah, so, you know, and that's unfortunately something is growing more and more these days with people feeling more and more stress and pressure and so forth. And so it's unfortunate, but to these people, I'll say, you know, think about attribution theory. Be nice to number one, think about number one. But then that's what I bring here. I'm not trying to be just a positive voice tonight. I'm trying to think about entrepreneurs. You know, it's so stressful to be an entrepreneur. It's extremely stressful. Like right now, the entrepreneurs, what are they doing? The entrepreneurs right now are getting so worried about the economy while they are doing their taxes, while they don't know the future. It's kind of a terrible times to be an entrepreneur right now. But at the same time, we do need entrepreneurs. So we do need people to see, you know, what do I have to bring to this economy? What are my ideas? Let's lay all my ideas and then see the value of those ideas and how can they get supported by opportunities that I find from doing research. And that's why I think you may not totally realize that, but that's the exercise that you're going to do in this class. This class is a mini version of what is one of the best training to do in order to jump in the new world that's coming our way, which I think would have a lot of opportunities for growth, but you have to have the courage and the stamina to survive and weather this storm that is right where we are right into now. But what are the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur? So you have to have passion for business. So we're talking about being passionate. So imagine you're a music person, but you're not passionate for business. That's going to probably make it very difficult. Having a passion for business is understanding that there are needs and you need to satisfy those needs. That you need to constantly understand who you're serving, who am I serving, what do they want, how are they changing, and the more you know about these customers, the better you are. So you don't want to be product focused, but you want to be customer focused. Focus on who you're serving, not on the product. Again, don't be in love with the solution, don't be in love with the product, be in love with the problems, be in love with the customers. So there's nothing too wrong about this. Being in love with the customers, sometimes it's very difficult because you may be in an industry where the customers are very difficult. I don't know, you're in an industry of fast food, for example. People will complain about fast food. Oh, it's not good, it's greasy, it's sweet and all this. I mean, that's how you get cheap food. You don't get cheap food by using amazing ingredients. You get cheap food by using horrible ingredients. So that's why it's cheap, and that's why it's fast. So people have wrong expectations, they have unrealistic expectations. So you can't constantly think the customer is right. So I'm very confusing in the sense that I say if there is one boss, is the customer, but to some extent, there is extent that you have to be very careful. There's certain customers that are big complainers. Yesterday, actually, I was with a friend, a very good friend, and he's the general manager of probably the highest rated restaurant in Southern California. And he was telling me that every day he has a huge list of people complaining about his restaurant. Oh, the sauce was too much of this, and this was too much of that, and all that. Most people come with a Ferrari or Lamborghini in his restaurants, extremely wealthy people. He told me that last night there's four people that were eating, they left a tip of $3,900. That was the tip, just the tip, $3,900. Okay, so then you can say, well, when you leave a tip like that, you probably have a right to complain. But there's just a group of people. There's not much you can do. They have to complain. There's just lots of complainers, and I think that's also something that's growing. A lot of people complaining, and because they are stressed, because of anxiety and all that. So when I say the customer is right, I feel like saying 99% of the time. So you can't just think it's all the time. You have to be careful, otherwise you go insane. But tenacity, obviously, you can imagine with this, because there's a lot of changes. There's changes that you don't anticipate. There's a lot of drama and all this. I mean, just talking about the industry I'm the most in 2017, when Donald Trump came, he had a big fight with Airbus, between Boeing and Airbus, and obviously Boeing is American. So he took the side of Boeing and he put a fare, custom fare, for 25%, plus 25% for the cognac. And he did this for the cognac because the cognac was doing very well in America. And he wanted to screw the cognac so that way he could negotiate the Airbuses. You would say, wow, the poor cognac, that had nothing to do with the Airbuses. But that did screw the cognac. The cognac sales went 50% down and eventually 75% down. When President Biden came, a month after, he changed this back to zero. And the business of cognac went 200% up the first 2 years, while the first few months of Biden, and then he went up and then he went down again because of some recession that sort of there was not a crash, 2002, but there was some sort of a recession. And then China had a huge change of mind when it came to the French wine and brandies, and they just almost stopped importation. So we went from big business to zero. And President Trump, for the past months, is talking about putting a 200%, not a 25% on the cognac. So you can have a business that is 200% up 2 years after it's 200% down. And, that's very difficult because you have to make investments as an entrepreneur. You have to hire people. But when you hire people, because business is 200% up, you hire people every day. But when your business suddenly, in a matter of a week, goes 200% down, you have to fire all of these people. So I don't know how much empathy you have, but firing people is not fun. Turning off all kinds of things is not fun. So there's a real emotional toll as well. And eventually, it's very easy to be in a position where you start thinking, you know what, I don't want to do all of this anymore. I just want to stop all of this. I'm done. I want to do something else. And that's part of being a business person and entrepreneur, because you're feeling this down and saying, I'm going to stop everything because it's becoming horrible and all this. It's a very normal thing. And it's funny because I think the more you hear it, the better it is, because then you don't take it too personal. And then you hear people saying, oh, it was like this in 98, and it was like this in 86, and it just being part of this is no honor. There's a lot of tough times, and that's for everybody, and it's all the time. So you have to have this tenacity. Another thing as well is when you're an entrepreneur and you're coming up with new things, what do most people say when they hear something new? What do 99% of the people say when they hear something new? They say, no, it won't work. Or best case scenario, good luck, son. Good luck, son. That's one I've heard a lot. Oh, good luck, son. Yeah. And so they just don't see it. And then when it works, they all go, oh, you know, I had a hint it was going to work and all this. But anyway. So the other thing is that you don't want to. So a lot of people, what they do to become successful business entrepreneur is they buy books. And they buy a book and a second book and a video and a club. And they go to a conference and then they go see a speaker and then they buy an inspirational and then they try to get motivated. If you know what somebody like this, it's unlikely they will be a good entrepreneur, because a good entrepreneur is self-motivated most of the time. So it's kind of very difficult to understand what I'm saying, because in one way I'm telling you, you have to listen to the market and listen to the people in order to make your decisions. And on the other hand is you have to listen to nobody really, is you have to do what you think is the right thing to do. So that's why it's very difficult, is there needs to be an intelligence, an execution intelligence, which is that you can have a common sense where you see the difference between who you should listen and who you should not listen. So the big mistake people do is they listen to everybody. And in fact, the media does this all the time. They do this all the time. So they would pick the common man or common woman in the street, you know, and say, hey, so how to, for example, how to manufacture consent. So I'm saying all of this because I know people presented Bernie's, so they're not going to think I'm crazy. That was presented, and Schumpeter and Milgram and all this. And that's why I wanted to see this. But you can manufacture consent. So to manufacture consent, for example, you take 3 people that look like soldiers from Ukraine, and you ask those 3 people. You don't even need to do 3; you just do 1. And you ask these Ukrainian soldiers, say, hey, do you think you should keep on doing the war? And then you just make sure that these people say no, if you want someone to say no, or yes, if you want someone to say yes. Then you present this as if this one person that looks like a soldier is reflecting the entire military of Ukraine. And by using just one common man opinion, people, unfortunately, most people, like 99%, will take this information as if it's relating to everybody. And suddenly it's universal. The universal opinion is they want to or they don't want to stop the war or go to the war or whatever. So that's very important, because when you are an entrepreneur, is you want to go into a universe that you want to create, kind of like your own metaverse. You're going to create this new universe. You're going to change the world. You're going to become a leader and lead people in a path which is an improvement based on your ideas, but based on some understanding of opportunities that are in the market that nobody took advantage of. The minute you do this, you cannot have a short stamina. You have to have a long stamina. You have to have drive, ambition, and the last one I left is curiosity. So that's when people ask me, you know, I mean, so you understand, it's like, what would you want your kids to have as their #1 personality skills? Curiosity. Do you want them to be attractive? Yeah. Intelligent? Yeah. Rich? Yeah. Ambitious? Yeah. Drive? Yeah. But if there was only one, and the #1 is curiosity. Because with curiosity, you're someone that constantly wants to research. So therefore, that's what you need. Remember, it's like having a business and not doing any research. Good luck. Curiosity means that you think that there is always an improvement. you're skeptical of the status quo. You're skeptical of the current state. And therefore, you think that it could be done better. So I give you an example. All the people that push for Bitcoin right now, one of the arguments that they say is there's only a certain number of Bitcoin made. There's a number and it can't be made more. Not all the Bitcoin have been produced and they are being mined, and they're going to be mined till 2130 years, more or less. Bitcoin cannot be stolen unless you have the code in order to get to the wallet and all these different things. And I would say yes to this. But if you go back 30 years ago and someone tells you about blockchain, this person will be totally crazy. If someone told you about, I don't know, going to Mars, if someone told you about all of these things, about sonic airplane, airplanes that go over 10,000 miles per hour, speed, so it's like several times the speed of light, most people would tell you you're insane. So today, saying that you cannot go into a wallet of a Bitcoin, I think is as insane, because nobody knows how technology is going to evolve. And there's so many things that keep changing, and therefore it's changing and changing and changing. And as an entrepreneur, you absolutely love change and you want to be part of change. And you embrace change and you have this curiosity for solutions of problems. So curiosity is very, very important. So it's a healthy way of looking at the world around you. And that's why a lot of people say, when is it better to be an entrepreneur? When you're young or when you're old? What do you think? When you're young or when you're old? When is it better? And remember what I told you is the best answer to most questions. I'm not sure I remember that. It depends. It depends. So that's how you have to start. It depends. If you're old, you have those benefits, the benefits of experience, the benefits of focus, the benefits of having more network, the benefits of having more resources, right? The benefits, all of these benefits, the benefits of maybe being more comfortable. But you have one thing which is not very good, is your curiosity is down. You have less curiosity. When you're young, you tend to have more curiosity. And the reason why you have more curiosity is because you have less been in a comfortable position. You are in the position that you need to prove yourself. You're in the position that you need to be curious, otherwise you are already old if you're not curious. So you are, without realizing, being more curious. And as you become older, you usually have more to lose. And having more to lose, you become more comfortable, and therefore you become less curious. You become more risk averse. So older are more risk averse, less curious, but more focused. Younger is less focused, more curious, more risk averse. So what happens is when you're young is you're going to probably do entrepreneurship from a perspective where you will fail a lot. And usually that's the statistics. Older entrepreneurs fail less. Younger entrepreneurs fail more. More curiosity, they jump on the ideas, they fall in love with the ideas, and therefore they fail more. However, entrepreneurship rhymes with failures. The idea of failure should not be something that stops anyone being an entrepreneur, because it's also part of this curiosity. Is you don't in love with what you're doing, you're in love with the process because you're passionate about business. So hopefully this answers the question since we at the beginning is, should you be passionate? Yes, but you should be passionate about business. Passionate about business for the music industry. Passionate about business for golfing. Passionate about business for hair care, skin care, whatever it is. But the passion for business needs to be there, because otherwise it becomes a passion that is product focused and not business focused. Okay. Do you have any questions or comments? Hopefully, you're starting to put yourself in the skin of an entrepreneur from all the things I'm explaining, and hopefully you're starting to like to be an entrepreneur for at least for this class and coming up with your own ideas and building it up and being evaluated for your curiosity, your ambition, your drive, and all this execution that you're going to show you, obviously. Now, here's one thing I want to say, and that's going to go back to passion. And that's funny because that's where you see that it's very complex. Is the whatever project that you pick with your group, here are the pitfalls. One, if you don't want to say to the other 6, 7 people, hey guys, I have a good idea of a business that I want to do. And I want to work on this business, that way I can gain from it. This never works well. Why? Because the 7 other students will feel that they are not benefiting as much as this person. Therefore, they will take a backrider position by letting this person do most of the work because they're benefiting from it after the class. So it's usually, it has never worked. And soon enough, these people realize that this was a problem. So don't pick something that someone is directly gaining from it, because otherwise it's going to be an unbalanced participation, just to put it in blank English, number one. Number two, do not pick something that is complex. Why is this? This is an exercise. This class is an exercise. This class is to see if you can do it right. And therefore, you don't have to prove that you are a genius. You just have to complete the exercise. So the simplest, most obvious opportunities, ideas that you found, here's the problem, here's the solution, and it's simple and you can explain it. You can pitch it in less than 1 minute, the better. The more you take something complex, the more you're going to need 4, 5, 6 months to really do a good job. So what I recommend is if you think about something that's just amazing, keep it on the back burner for after the class, for maybe doing it for real. For this class, only, and I'm saying 99%, but for this class, 99% work on something that you want to be able to complete for the Maya sake type of project, and not trying to be a hero. Just focus on the job, get it done. Congratulations, graduate. That's the focus. Right. Professor Mackenzie will tell you the same thing. Don't try to be, don't try to do something that's, we all think it's the most amazing thing, but you need another month, and that's why you're only getting a B- because you didn't have the time to do it. You should be able to get an A. So be, be mindful in what you pick that doesn't benefit just one person, and be mindful that it's something that can be completed within the time period, which means this has to be done by the mid of May. And if you understand what I'm trying to say now, and you get feedback from Professor Mackenzie, make your life easy. Don't make it more difficult than it needs to be. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So do you have a question for this? No. So maybe just to complete it, in the previous class, I was talking about just noticeable difference. When you bring something that is just an improvement, it's 2%, 5% improvement of something, that's great because we already know. I have a bottle here, if you see that. And this bottle has a top. And this brand is very famous for having a very good filter, but having an horrible top because it leaks from the top. So depending on where you put it, if the bottle falls, then you get a leak. So the improvement from that, based on the problem, will be to make a very similar bottle, but with a top that has a much better top where you don't get the leak. So it's not reinventing everything, it's reinventing just this one problem. And that's a just noticeable difference. So in the music industry, try to find something where you could make this just noticeable difference. However, you don't want to have something that's too trivial, too small. So that's where common sense kicks in, is find something that is sufficiently big enough that you can have an interesting contribution to that industry. Okay, so I've explained all of this. Here's some other characteristics. So tenacity, we talked about it. The passion, we can talk about it. The vision, so you have to be someone that really has a long-term plan. is you're not thinking about this year or next year. Is you have this mission statement, this vision of someone that of it may look like you want to change something small, but what you're doing right now, making small changes, but those small changes eventually will accumulate into something that is really big. And so that's very motivating for employees usually to hear the big vision. And why are we doing what we're doing today for the sake of the big vision? It's a managerial tool in order to get people more involved. Gabrielle, I think you had your hand up just a few seconds ago, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, when you were talking about the size. Oh, sorry, let me turn my.
Yeah, we could hear you.
When you're talking about the size of the business, like, so that does that mean like not a like what if the idea is like we're gonna make this music artist or make a music artist big? Is that like too small
No, but the
to
problem
like
is
be a
making.
music group for like the proposal?
So if if it's a music group, you have to really see that this project is something that you can work on in a month and a half, essentially, because that's what you have. You have a month and a half.
Oh, well, I mean, it wouldn't create like the final like album and the videos and stuff, but the concept
Yeah.
of like here's the next like Backstreet Boys or the next Taylor Swift or whatever.
Yeah. So it's as long as you can make a compelling presentation that explains that there is a need for this. I mean, that was interesting. Lindsay, she talks about Mozart. And in a way, I thought that could be interesting to see if there is a way to revive Mozart. So I had an engineer that contacted me a year ago, and I tried to tell you very quick. He said what he did is he found it very interesting that you could use AI to actually recreate people's voices, and you could use AI to make videos of people as if they are speaking. And so he was doing that. But then he said what was very interesting is I use AI to create an archive, a library of all the things that these people said. And then you could have a conversation with these people. So he was giving me an example that I understood because I like that author, and it's a French author. It's called Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo wrote a lot of books, and he was very involved in politics and geopolitics and the society and all that. So he said, imagine if you could reinvent Victor Hugo, and then you could have a website where you go and you ask questions to Victor Hugo. But Victor, the questions are actually answered by AI that dives into Victor Hugo, I don't know, 50 books and whatever he wrote, everything he wrote in order to collect from this to answer that question. And that question could be answered in multiple languages, pretending to be the voice of Victor Hugo. Maybe you know the voice of this person. Obviously, nobody knows the voice of Victor Hugo, but you would have some kind of interpretation. And then you would see the visual face of Victor Hugo, because we have paintings and pictures, or photography. And then you will see this person speak and answer your question based on that databases of all the things that this person has been discussing, with essentially a computer imitation of Victor Hugo's brain, as far as we know from all the things that this person published. So instead of getting a Wikipedia answer, instead of getting a ChatGPT answer, instead of getting a Google answer, you could get an answer artist per artist. So then I was thinking, wow, if you could do this with Mozart, for example, and try to use the music of Mozart and make your own music compilation using classical music, and then using AI to recreate those, I don't know what you call it, homograms or whatever of these people from an AI perspective. And then you could be listening to current music, saying, oh, I want Mozart music, but I don't want the piano. I want electric, some sort of electric synthesizer version of all of this. And then you sort of reinvent all of these musicians with new instruments or combination. It's like I want get a mixture. I don't know, David Guetta doing beach party using Beethoven Ninth Symphony or whatever, and then so the problem with what I just said is it's just an idea. Maybe it sounds good, maybe it sounds horrible, but it's just an idea. Your job is to convince us that this idea makes so much sense. So your grade is going to be based on the relationship between the strengths of your argument and how much you are convincing us. The more you're convincing us, the more it goes above 90. The less you're convincing us, the less it goes under 90. Does that make sense? Because you're selling it. It's like a Shark Tank. So it's a Shark Tank assignment, this class, more than anything else. So that's why it's very important with your groups. If you have 8 people in your group. If you have 8 people in your group, how many ideas should you have? More than 8 or less than 8? If you have less than 8, it's a problem. Let's put it in mathematical number. Less than 8 ID, you have a problem in your group, which means you have 1 or 2 or 3 pistons that don't move. So you need to have 8 IDs and then see how you can back up those 8 IDs. So self-belief, some level of confidence, tolerance of ambiguity. I mean, that's the conversation we're having right now. Some of you may say, oh, this class is really cool. But to be honest, many of the Maya students absolutely love that class. That's one of the most popular classes, but because it's the last class, they can't wait to be finished. But however, they love the subject and the program. But that's this thing, is how much tolerance do you have for abstract things? Because at the beginning, you have to really think abstract. For the next 2 weeks, you have to be extremely abstract because you have to sort of go in a bubble and start thinking about all of these different things and then go out of the bubble and try to make it concrete. And it's this exercise between brainstorming and reality and build the bridge between brainstorming and reality, okay? And then flexibility, flexibility is this practicality that you're going to develop. And in this class, obviously, there's a level of flexibility that comes from the fact that you have 6 weeks to perform, and disruptive, how much tolerance do you have to disruption? So can you be made into an entrepreneur? I mean, obviously, it's better if you're born to be an entrepreneur, if you're already someone who has a lot of tenacity and curiosity and all of these things, but you can be taught to have curiosity. And sometimes people are taught to have a curiosity because they see that you make more money. The more curiosity you have, the more money you make. So people get the point of money. It's like, I don't want to be poor, and therefore I'm going to start becoming curious because I want to create something. Here's a video that I want to share of this English gentleman that says very quickly all the things that I said. So he's going to help me make the summary. So his name is John Caldwell, and he's a very successful person in the United Kingdom. He's like Bill Gates, if you want, in the United Kingdom. And he went from nothing to a billionaire because he took advantage of the situation where people started buying cell phones. So they went from the phone in the home and being able to buy a phone just to have a mobile phone that they take with them. And so he built on that. And this video is very short, it's like 1.5 minutes or something. And he summarized what you need to have in order to be a successful entrepreneur.
There are 2 fundamental ways of becoming rich and successful. One is to come up with a unique proposition, a unique idea. Very rare that any individual does that, but of course it happens. If you come up with a unique and rare proposition, then there's a really good chance of making that into something that will create substantial wealth. For most of us, that's not going to happen, and indeed it never happened for me. So if you're not going to come up with a unique idea, then the other aspect is just real hard graft, hard effort, consistently over a long period of time. But to achieve that, there are 6 critical success factors. You need ambition, to see where you're going in life and to aim for it and push for it. You need the drive to bring that ambition to fruition. You need the passion, the resilience to hold those things together, because when you're putting that drive and ambition together, that can put a lot of stress on your life, a lot of stress on you physically and mentally. So you need a whole load of resilience to be able to cope with all of that. Of course, you need commercial intellect. Commercial intellect is that rare, absolutely rare commodity that allows you, a rare talent that allows you to tip the balance into your favour on every commercial decision that you make. And then the final thing that you need to grow anything of scale and real wealth is leadership. Leadership, the ability to drive people to greater and bigger things and support you and enable you to make that wealth that you seek.
So the leadership is very important. And so that's why I was talking about the element of vision. Is to have good leadership is you need someone to get people around you. And to get people around you is you need to have a plan. And you need to be good at communicating, sharing the plan, explaining the benefits of this plan, explaining what is better. Rallying people around you is very important. There's another video from someone that you probably know, Robert Kiyosaki, someone that you may not like if you know him. He's sort of been more famous this past 4 years because he was very pro-Republican and all this. So that's not the reason why I'm bringing this person. The reason why I'm bringing this person is that, yes, there's a very interesting element in what he does, and I want to quickly express it.
Do the rich people
this video.
cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robert?
Yes, yes, yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor. So my father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, you know? And he got flustered and he said, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So I asked him. He says, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm a government employee. I went, oh, what's the difference? He says, the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money, or they're no longer entrepreneurs. And he says an employee doesn't have to know anything about money because the government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. So I'm all confused. But I took my dad's advice and I trundled over to Mike's father's office and knocked on his door and I said, hey, I'm here, 9 years old. Teach me about money. He says, beat it, kid, you know. But that's where the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad started. And finally, through persistence, my rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, the moment I pay you, you think like an employee. He says, that's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. And now I'm.
So what does that mean? Entrepreneurs work for free.
You have to earn the dough.
You have to
Obviously don't, though, but they work maybe without a guarantee of a paycheck from week to week, but definitely not for free. I don't know what you mean.
He basically is saying just keep pulling out loans and use this debt to further yourself.
Bruh.
No, that's not what he's saying.
No,
So what
I know,
does that
but
mean?
No, you basically have to keep on working at it until you're actually earning income. Like you're destined to like not make a whole lot of money like when you first start off, or even better.
Break even.
So
I mean, so many startups though don't like the entrepreneurs made a lot of money, like on the sale, like we said, but like Spotify, for example, or Uber or any of those big startups, like a lot of them, they don't really, like they're not profitable.
Yeah.
They
So
only make money by
anyone
cornering
saw the
users.
movie Karate Kid?
I love Karate Kid.
Yeah, we love it.
Yep.
So what happens when the kid says, "Oh, teach me to beat up people and kill people"? What did the Grandmaster tell him to do?
That's not
Fence.
that's not what you're supposed
That's
to
not
do.
what fighting is about.
You're here to defend yourself.
But
He
no, but
says,
what,
says paint the
No.
fence, wax the car.
wax on, wax off. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
The kid said, I want to learn about karate. I don't want to learn about cleaning a car. It's the same thing. If
But
you want to be a successful entrepreneur and
Yeah.
your totem
Live
is the
sleep.
money, then you won't be a successful entrepreneur. A successful entrepreneur is someone that is objective driven. It's
They
someone
chase
that is
success,
growth
not
driven.
money.
And they're not going for the money. They're going for the success. They're going for the knowledge. They're going for the curiosity. They're going for more. They're not interested. Employees are interested in the money. That's what he was saying. He's like, oh, that's a typical thing when you hire someone. So you hire someone, they say, okay, so when do I work? Oh, Monday to Friday. Okay. When do I start? Oh, when do I finish? So they're interested in when they start and when they finish. When you're an entrepreneur, you're not interested in when you start and when you finish. You're interested in showing the world that you're the best. You're not interested in what time you work or how much money you make. That's an employee mentality. So the entrepreneur mentality is not this. The entrepreneur mentality is you're interested in your success, your growth, completing your objectives, learning from the best, and constantly meeting with better and better and better and better people and making it better and better and better and better. And the money is an after product of this. But if you start chasing the money, it fails. So then what's interesting is you take 100 billionaire and you ask them, how did they get to be billionaire? Most of them will tell you is they got billionaire because they're very constantly doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing and focused and focused and focused and good at leading and growing. And most of them actually didn't go to school. And in fact, it's very interesting is the more billionaire you become, the less degree you have. So if you want to become a billionaire, don't get a PhD. If you want to become a billionaire, don't get a master's degree. If you want to become a billionaire, don't get a bachelor. Go to the army. Wake up very early, get your rear kicked. Listen to someone that screams at you, do what you want to do and say, I won't do this ever again. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to get out of here and start something better and new and listen to no one, do what I want and listen to those customers and just kill it. And so that's very interesting. And, I have a PhD on all this. I probably should not say that. I've write books. I want people to write my books. Books are for losers. You don't read a book. You just do it. Stop reading the books. Stop looking at the videos. Just do it. And so, but that's so important. But with parsimony means there's a balance. Is it so much better if you get a bachelor or a master? And then realize that what you got is not what's going to get you super successful. These are just good trainings, good coaching. But what you do after is after you're in the street, there's no more masters and bachelors. Once you're in the street, everybody has the same level. Is what do you do with what you have? You have 24 hours, you have 7 days a week. What do you do? Do you have a Netflix? Yes. How much time do you spend? Do you have a video game? Yes. How much time do you spend? When you go to bed, when you wake up? What's your hygiene of life? How much are you closing your objectives? How much are you focusing on? How much are you dreaming the day versus doing? How much are you doing? Are you doing baby steps? Every day you achieve something. When you go to bed, do you rewind the tape of the day and look at this day that you spent and think about, what did I do today? Did I do anything that was in my list? You start the day with a list. So that's what this video, and this Rich Dad Poor Dad is the most sold book. I'm not saying it's the best one, but it's the most sold book for entrepreneurs. But I'm not saying it's the best one. So you could read the book, but I don't think you need to read the book. You just need to understand that entrepreneurs don't work for money. Entrepreneurs I learned this one time. There's a 1 minute, 2 minutes left. I learned this one time early in my career. I had a business and I was looking for investor. And there's this very wealthy Chinese guy that came and he was listening to me and all this. And he said, you know what? I like your style. I'd like to be your partner. I think you have a good business, but mostly I'd like to work with you. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Thank you. And then he says, but you have a problem, which is that you want a lot of money and you don't give much shares, which means that you're sitting too much on the value and you don't want to share the value. So therefore, I'm out. Like Shark Tank, I'm out. And I said, what do you mean? How much do you want? And he says, I want 50%. I said, no, that's 50% is too much because it'd be 50 you, 50 me. And I'll be screwed. And he says, sorry, I'm out. And then he looked at me after and he said, what if I was Warren Buffett and I wanted 50%? Would you give me the 50%? And then I had a little silence. And I went like, well, maybe. Because you're Warren Buffett. I mean, that opens doors. I mean, I don't know. And he looked at me, he says, yeah, you're making a mistake. I'm a billionaire in China. China is booming. I could make you so successful in China just by having 50%. Who cares? He says, I forgot the number of businesses he owned. He was business owner. So many, like 100 businesses, 5% here, 10% there, and all that. He says, I'm running after so many chicken at the same time because I don't know which one's going to work so well. But you're missing out because you're trying to keep too much for yourself. You have to look at growth and success from the partnership and the collaboration of these multiple people you have and the quality of the people that you have in your company and what they can do for you. And that's the magic of Shark Tank. If you watch the program of Shark Tank, how much money do people get in Shark Tank on average?
It depends.
On average, 50,000, let's say, 100,000.
Like 100.
Let's say 100,000, I think.
I say between 150 to 300, depending on how much they want investments in and how much they want in stakes.
Exactly. Can you do much with that money when you have a business? No.
Say again?
Can you? How much can you do with 150,000, 200,000 when you have a business?
In this economy, not a whole lot.
You can't do much. So why do people want $100,000 from those people? Because of who they are. And what can they do? You know what they can do? They grab the phone and they call someone and they get an order in 5 minutes of whatever you sell or whatever you want in 5 minutes, and it'll take you 2 years to get the same. So it's this is the power of network, right? And so that's very, very important. This guy taught me this, and I was like, I still have his number. I wonder if I should call him. I'm kidding, but the idea is that's it. So if you focus on the money, if you focus on not sharing and all this, I think you make a big problem. And it's not just me saying this. I have several videos of another guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. Gary V is one of the most famous current entrepreneur in blogs and social media. And that's what Gary V says, is if you pander over money, you will not be a good entrepreneur, because you need to be focused on what is it you're trying to do versus trying to get rich fast. And that's a big mistake. Entrepreneur doesn't get you rich fast. In fact, it's very slow. It's only like the lottery. People only hear about these people that became overnight, but they don't actually know all the story. It's more time than overnight. It takes a long time, and it takes a lot of deceptions in order to get there. But we are 9:32, so we'll keep this conversation, and I will start the next time actually talking about these people. Brian McKenzie and Robert Teagarden. Okay. And so we will, I will see you next Tuesday. And I hope you have a great week. And I hope you can already start talking about what is the ID. So don't be scared of the ID. IDs are okay. Brainstorming is fine, but just make sure that you can back it up. It doesn't stay as just an ID, an unsupported ID. It has to be an opportunity, which is a fact supporting the IDs. Okay? Do you have any questions? No questions. So if you go to Canvas, there is the first assignment is called one sheet. if you go to Canvas, there's samples of one sheet. And I strongly recommend that you go look at these. One sheet means it's just one page. So you're gonna have to show me a one page. I have one here. I'll show it to you before you leave. Here's one. It looks like this. That's going to be your presentation. It looks like that, where you have market opportunities, market quantification, projected revenue by the numbers, key features, 5 forces. And it just shows those points is what you're going to do based on what, how much you're planning to sell, and what would be the benefits for buying your product, and who are your competitors and all that. Like a brief, like a sort of a SWOT, a brief SWOT. So start talking about the ID, discuss the ID with your teammates, and start developing a SWOT around your ID. That's the first thing you should do. A list of IDs and a SWOT that goes with the best ID that your team wants to pursue. And then look at the examples. Here's another one, and you find these in Canvas. Looking at the examples, how do you present this? How do you make a story out of your IDs? And how do they develop what it's about? Brainstorming on SWOT. Have a good night, everyone.